Hi, Susan. Thank you for being here. I'm Elissa, and I'm the lead minister here at First, for those of you who are just joining us. And this is Susan Saunders with me, who is a member of our vision team. They were commissioned in 2020, so you guys have been at this a long time.
Longer than we thought.
Yeah, a lot longer. I mean, it's not like anything has happened since 2020, you know? But we're coming to a critical stage in this process, and there is going to be a big meeting on Sunday and the week after. So I'm wondering actually if you can just give us a little bit of background on where we've been before we start talking about Sunday.
Well, the vision team was charged to create a plan for our life together as a church over the next few years. And so we began with small group meetings of the congregation, which were very well attended. And out of those meetings came the ideas for proposals. And we asked 4 proposals to be submitted, and we got more than 40.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It was. And so then we took all the proposals and we kind of broke them into groups because there was a lot of overlapping.
Right.
And that went into, well, eventually 5.
Right.
And within those 5, there are still a lot of different projects.
Right.
But then people volunteered to be on the groups to work on the proposals, to actually flesh everything out and get the proposals that are that have been presented in the last 2 weeks.
Right, ready to go.
And we're ready to talk about them.
Yeah, so those 5 groups have been working since, some in the summer, some since the fall, and so here we are, we're at the decision point. And my understanding of what's happening on Sunday is that it's a time to answer questions from those people who have worked so hard to put those proposals together, right? It's they've been out for 2 weeks, or will have been on Sunday. Yeah. We're gonna have a bit of time on Sunday to talk through them, kind of look at them as a whole, and then we'll take questions specifically about those proposals in particular.
Yes.
That's the purpose.
Specifically for those proposals. The time for saying, I have another idea, or let's do this instead of this, is past for now.
Yep.
And we want to specifically talk about the proposals that have been presented.
Right, because we've had so much time to work on this, and these folks have been putting in so much of their time and effort to get us to this point, right? And so I think that's also a good point. The other thing is that this is really not a time to talk about how we are going to be paying for it, right? This is something that's that came up at annual meeting, that there was some conversation about how we're going to use the Ronald McDonald House funds, and that's not the point of Sunday or the 26th either.
In writing the proposals, the groups were asked to put forth ideas of where funding might come.
Right.
From where it might come, and the Ronald McDonald House money is mentioned.
Right.
But none of that, we're not voting on that. We're voting on the idea of the proposal, because we as a congregation haven't talked about the Ronald McDonald money yet, and that conversation is still to come. Right. So when a proposal says, well, we could use Ronald McDonald money, that's an idea. It's a suggestion. Right. But it's not what we're voting on.
Right. So what's going to happen on Sunday is we're going to ask questions about these proposals, flesh out how different teams got to different results. Then we're going to have a week to pray over that. And that's really something I think the team wanted to highlight, that this is a discernment. It's not, I really want this idea to succeed, or I've put a lot of time into this, and so this really needs to go forward. We're trying to discern as a congregation where our energy is, because that tells us a little bit about where the Spirit is moving, right? So probably on the 19th, I'll do a little bit of background on what discernment is. I'll write about that over that following week so people can be thinking about it. And then on the 26th, we're going to talk about that a little bit as well, right? There's going to be a time of opening prayer to lead us into that moment of discernment. After that, there'll be a voting, which I want you to talk about in just a moment. But I want to follow up on what you just said, which is the results of that the vision team is going to take and create from that a strategic plan, right?
Yes.
And then you guys get to be done, which is great. And once that strategic plan is implemented, then it gets to the implementation phase, right? And that's when we talk about the funding and
Yes.
stuff. So it's not that the funding is irrelevant, and maybe for you with your voting, that's something that's really important to you, right? Each of us brings our different gifts to this discernment, right? Some people may be really, really worried about what it's going to cost, and that's how you are hearing the still small voice speak to you about the Spirit. Others might be most concerned about voting for efficacy, like how many folks are we going to be able to impact with this? Others might be voting based on something that moves them personally and that they feel like there's good energy in this congregation for. So each of us needs to bring those things to the 26th, but that conversation explicitly about funding will come later. So I just wanted to be clear about that. So then, can you tell us a little bit about how the voting is going to happen on the 26th?
Well, it is a discernment vote. It's not a this one wins and this one loses. Right. And everyone, I think, will have 3 stickies, and the colors will specify first choice, second choice, third choice. And people will just put the 3 stickies where their heart is leading them.
Yeah.
And for example, in the child care, there are 3 different proposals for child care. Now, if
3 different ways of making
3 different
childcare
ways
happen.
of making the
Right,
child care
right,
happen.
right.
And let's say they get even number of stickies and none of them really stick out or even get the most votes.
Right.
That doesn't, but we'll be able to see from all the votes for childcare that might be something people are really wanting. So it's not saying, oh, this plan only got 5 votes, so it's not going to go.
Right.
That's not how this works.
Right.
This is to show where people are leaning and where people want to put their energy.
Right.
And there are also many proposals from different groups that kind of overlap. So they'll be color coded so that people can see that there's an overlap here.
Right.
And a vote in one spot is kind of like a vote for that overlapping spot in another project. So
that's great.
the voting is really to get people to show where they want us to be going. And it's not this one got this many votes, so it wins and these lose.
Right. I think that's an important point, right? We're not voting no for something, right? We're discerning what our priorities are, and who knows how things will shake out in the priorities. But what you're going to do as the vision team is take that information back one last time. This is your last little collection, and create from that a strategic plan, which is then going to go to the trustees. The trustees are going to look it over, bounce questions back and forth, refine it before it comes back to the congregation. And at that point, there will be space for conversation, right?
Yes.
That's the point really where we want to have that happen before we have a congregational vote to approve that. And then we move on to implementation. So again, the 19th Sunday is about questions and answers for these proposals. But there is a time coming later on down the road for bigger input, that kind of thing. Does that summarize it? Okay. So again, I am going to be doing a little background on what discernment means. That is going to come out a little bit on the 19th, but I'm going to write a piece, so look for next week's e-news to have a little background about how do we do discernment. Some of you have done some of it in your personal lives, but doing it as a group is a very different challenge. So I think that pretty much covers it, Susan. Is there anything else that we feel like folks need to know?
No, I just think everybody needs to understand that this isn't about winning or losing.
Yeah.
It's about showing us where we want to go in the future together as a congregation.
Right.
And some things may need to be prioritized, but we're just going to get a good idea of what everyone is feeling and wanting to do.
Right. Yeah, there was, in our e-news last week, we put up a graphic of kind of the differences between democracy voting, one person, one vote, and discernment, which is where you may end up feeling sad still if your proposal doesn't go through, but the feeling is different in the sense that you're still working with that group, right? And you're still understanding that this is the way the Spirit is moving at this time, and we all have different ways of understanding the Spirit, and hopefully we can all come together around that. And I guess, what you brought up, that this is collective discernment, reminds me one last point, which we've had come up several times. There will be an option for absentee voting. So on Sunday, we will have a live stream running on YouTube. You can ask questions. There'll be an usher there that can make sure those questions get to the various teams to answer them. The 26th, we will have a digital option. My guess is that is going to come out after the fact, after the in-person live voting. And the reason for that is because it's about discernment, right? It's about hearing where the Spirit is speaking in collective. So what we'd like to do is have the votes, those stickies, kind of calculated for you who are at home, so you can see how the Spirit is moving and then cast your vote. So it's less about casting your vote in advance and trying to influence it than it is about trying to see where it is moving here and how your voice and your hearing of that still small voice fits in.
And it's just so important that as many members as can vote. Because we don't want this to be the result of a small number of people. We want to hear from everyone.
Just like at that initial stage, those cottage meetings, it was really important to have a wide variety of participation. This is the next stage that really requires that, right?
Yeah.
The validity of the strategic plan and how we all feel about it really comes down to how many of us show up for these places. So I really just want to end by thanking you all so much. I know you didn't think it was going to be a 3-year journey. I certainly didn't. But you have been so faithful about this. It's just been a great delight.
It's been a great learning opportunity for us, and I think we all on the vision team would like to thank all the people who volunteered to work on these proposals and get them ready for the stage that we're in, and they just did amazing work, and so thank you very much to everyone involved.
Well, likewise, this has been really remarkable. So please do take a look at those proposals, read them thoroughly, come prepared to talk about them and ask your questions this Sunday, prepared to discern over the next following week. And can I close us in prayer?
Please do.
God, we begin in gratitude first, knowing that if that is where we ended, it would be enough, because there is so much gratitude for this visioning process, for this thriving congregation, for all of the work that has gone into this particular moment, all of the hopes and the faithfulness and the effort. And God, we ask that you help us to be faithful in these next steps as we have been faithful up to this point. As I have seen this congregation be faithful, let us be faithful in this next piece to quiet ourselves, to listen for your voice, to align our own heart and mind and will and voice with yours. May we have in our hearts a desire to always love more and lead with that love for this congregation and this community that is so in need of that love to come alive in new ways in this time. In your name, God, and in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Thank you, Susan.